As Messerich pushed deeper into Bahriye, the Sultan panicked and sent a desperate message to Banana Hayes, begging for help. Banana Hayes, furious from the chaos in the Balkans, sent a letter to Messerich demanding they stop the invasion immediately or face another continental war. Strangely, Messerich agreed, their troops exhausted from endless fighting across Europe. But while the great powers argued, Pandy kept moving. As the raids continued non-stop, the tribes around Pandia collapsed. Weak, burned, starved, they submitted almost instantly. Villages fell one after another, giving Pandy huge stretches of land without even fighting. Banana Hayes expanded into the Banana Balkans, Stefania marched into Germany, and Aprakotia rebuilt its entire army, preparing for the next crusade. But then came the disaster nobody expected. Pandy sent Jared, commander of the elite 17th Infantry Division, to raid the Holy Stephanian Dorimian Empire. It was supposed to be a simple operation: burn supplies, terrify the border, return home. A storm hit, the map flipped, and he accidentally landed in Britannia, thinking it was Stephania. Without asking a single question, Jared charged straight into the coastal town. Houses burned, guards fell, civilians fled, and within 2 days, Jared captured a massive amount of land, raising a Pandian flag over territory he didn't even recognize. When Pandy heard this, he thought it was a good idea and let him do anything he wanted as long as they stay allies. In 1160, the Second Bloggian-Stephanian War started. Blog had expanded massively, building new industrial zones and preparing for the next war. At dawn, they attacked, capturing Dorimia without a single shot. It wasn't even a victory. The city was empty. Since the horrors of Blauschwitz, everyone there had died from battles, executions, or the concentration camps. The Bloggians advanced anyway until they reached Stephania, the battlefield where they lost last time, and now they swore they wouldn't lose again. But right before the battle could finish, Messerich intervened and proposed a peace treaty. Blogia would get Dorimia and border Stephania, but Blogia was banned from expanding or attacking Stephania ever again. Stefan saw this treaty and instantly yelled, "Fuck off!" and sent his elite Dorimian cavalry and his whole army to Stephania. Junk responded fast, organizing a new strategy: superior firepower. The Bloggians sat tight in their fortifications, bombarding the Stephanians non-stop. At noon, the Stephanians arrived in the city. They gave weapons to the locals and recruited 25,000 militiamen to fight. Dorum was given full command of the army. He positioned himself in the city center and sent the cavalry to smash the regular Bloggian troops, which worked at first, though the cavalry took heavy losses. Then, Junk sent in the Bloggian infantry, who crushed the Stephanian militia forces and forced the Stephanians to retreat from the city outskirts. But Dorim wasn't done. He organized a night assault, catching the Bloggians completely off guard and throwing their whole line into confusion. This forced the entire forest, where the Stephanians were fully prepared. They mowed down waves and waves of Bloggian troops. However, the Bloggian artillery then fired into the forest, blowing apart the Stephanian fortifications and burning entire trenches. The fighting became so brutal, both armies were forced to retreat. As the continent was distracted with Blaugia and Stephania, Pandia started increasing its military size and factory count, industrializing insanely fast and preparing for a war with literally the whole continent. Meanwhile, in the Banana Balkans, Hayes and Mesa were both expanding and tensions were high. Hazian soldiers, bitter from their last defeat, wanted revenge more than anything. On July 1161, Mesarian soldiers started a border skirmish with Hassian troops, defeating them and forcing them to retreat and call for backup. Hayes heard this and got furious, demanding reparations and an apology from the leader of Messerite. Messer rejected it, and the furious Hayes declared war instantly. Hayes sent in 350,000 troops with 2 elite divisions. Earthwormian SS Division, Non-Banana Remover Division, Caesari commanded the Hassian army and advanced fast. He sent the garrison division to the coastal city of Blog's Feet, where new Mesarian reinforcements had just arrived. The battle began with Hassian soldiers moving along the coastline while Messer thought they were coming from the mountains. They were caught completely off guard by the Earthwormian SS, who smashed through the port guards and captured the port. At the same time, the Non-Banana Remover Division hit the village of Messer's Dickey, where the bulk of the Messer army was. The fighting was a stalemate, but with no supplies, the Messer troops had to retreat. After that, the war turned into mostly a stalemate, until the Pandians, with their new industrial army, launched another raid on Banana Nopal.
Oh, my banana treasure!
Hayes became furious and formed an alliance with Helioscity and Apricot, seeking to destroy the terrorizers of the continent. On October 18th, the Pandians, stationed in Alexia with local militias, saw the approach of the Triple Entente, Apricot from the west, with 150,000 troops, Helioscity from the east, with 200,000 troops, Banana Hayes from the north, with 150,000 troops. Pandy had 300,000 troops and 50,000 militia. Pandy split his forces into 4 groups, putting the weakest in the center and east, while focusing almost all his strength against Apricot. At first it worked. Apricot was forced to retreat. But when Hayes arrived, everything changed. They reorganized, placing their strongest troops in the center, outnumbering Hayes and pushing him into the forest. In a shocking twist, Eric Tater and his 5,000 loyalists switched sides and joined Pandy. But then Helios arrived with his elite cavalry, smashing through the eastern gates and forcing a retreat along the river. In the chaos, 50,000 Pandian troops drowned. Now the remains of Pandy's army were trapped inside the city, surrounded on all sides and forced to surrender. Casualties: Aprikotia, 80,000 Hayes, 65,000 Helioscity, 70,000 Pandia, 200,000 plus all 50,000 militia wiped out. The Pandian army was shattered. The continent would never forget the Battle of Alexia. The Pandian front now sat in a complete stalemate. The bulk of Apricot's and Helioscrite's armies secured the front lines, digging trenches and waiting for the next strike. But while everyone was staring at Pandia, a third conflict was about to erupt, one that would unite all the enemies of Stephania. Messer and Blog met up in secret to discuss the destruction of the Holy Stephanian Doremian Empire. The plan was simple. Messerreich would cross the Alps and take the new city of Doremia, since the old one fell to Blog in the last war. But this time, Stephania was prepared. They had increased their army to 1 million soldiers, all ready to defend at all costs and push back any invaders. And so, Messerreich, Pandia, Blogian Empire, the Erectator Free State, and the Jared Republic formed the new alliance, the Rome-Pandian Axis, a new plan formed by Caesari and Apricot to defeat the Axis. The plan began with Apricot concentrating his elite cavalry and regular infantry into a massive march. They stormed south and reached the city of Moskin, capturing it without a single shot. But then they ran straight into the Moskin Catenator, the same infamous division that committed war crimes in Italy. The Catenator hit Apricot's army with full force and pushed them all the way back to the border. The plan failed. Nonetheless, it proved one thing to the whole continent. Messerreich could be reached without touching a single boat. Using the victory at Moskin, Messer concentrated his elite Moskin catenators to lead a push straight into Apracotia, together with Pandy, planning to destroy the center of the Entente and gain a full connection to encircle the Holy Stephanian Doremian Empire. Messer attacked with success while Pandy once again failed, and Helios diverted his whole army to help Apricot, kicking the Pandians back instantly. Messer, using his fast divisions, advanced far and was now near Apracotia and had entered the outskirts. The city was modernized, had a huge castle, strong walls, and the young men had high morale. But they were outnumbered heavily. Messer, 135,000 versus Apricot, 65,000. Both sides had war veterans from all the battles and raids of the past years. At dusk, the Messer troops attacked, torching the city and committing brutal war crimes. But instead of breaking the Apracotians, the destruction increased their morale. They charged and succeeded, forcing the Messarians into a retreat. The first battle of Apracotia was a disaster for Messer. Messer casualties, 65,000. Apricot casualties, 20,000. 1 month later, May 8th, 1,163. The Messarians came back with an even larger force, 225,000 Messarians, 105,000 Pandians, 5,000 elite Erectator infantry fighting against the outnumbered 165,000 Apracotians. The strategy was different this time. Alex was a mastermind. He coordinated spying with Moskin and Erectator and watched when the Apricot soldiers slept. At night, when everyone was asleep, they launched a massive attack into the industrial zone. The assault was led by the entire Erectator infantry and the Pandian elite stormtroopers, 30,000 troops in total. The Apracotians were caught off guard and were forced to retreat out of the industrial zone and fall back to the castle. But as all hope seemed lost, the Stephanians arrived, charging full speed and smashing through the Pandian stormtroopers, inflicting huge casualties. Messer reinforced quickly, and for 2 months the battle stayed exactly the same. Supply issues hit Pandy and the Erectators hard. They had to retreat and regroup, leaving the Messarians waiting. The second battle of Apracotia ended neutral. Messer casualties, 75,000. Erectator casualties, 1,500. Pandy casualties, 45,000. Apricot casualties, 55,000. Holy Stephanian Doremian Empire casualties, 20,000. Then in August, the Axis returned again with an even larger army, and Apricot knew the city would fall this time. 300,000 Messarians, 10,000 Erectatorians who fled Banana Haze, 265,000 Pandians against 115,000 Apracotians. Apricot rushed to make new guns and weapons, handing them out to civilians to start a full-scale guerrilla war. At morning, they attacked from all sides, encircling the entire Apracotian army. Apricot and part of his forces fled into the forest and called the partisans to begin the guerrilla war. In the end, the battle had surprisingly low casualties. 25,000 Messarians, 45,000 Pandians, 1,000 Erectators. But the garrisons left in Apracotia were attacked every single day by partisans. Thousands died in constant ambushes. Even though the Messarians kept executing everyone they caught, the morale of Apracotia stayed high, and the locals never gave in. Messer replaced garrison after garrison until it was no longer worth it, and he withdrew. The Fourth Battle of Apracotia was a victory for Apricot. Messerich casualties, 55,000. Apricot casualties, only 21,000. The Axis suffered yet another humiliation, and Apracotia proved it would never fall quietly. Apricot, furious, launches an attack onto Pandia, trying to reach the capital again, but he fails and gets pushed back by the Alex army and the stormtroopers, who force him to retreat all the way to the city of Tohu in Apracotia. On the way there, Apricot's slower remaining forces get encircled 3 times, suffering brutal losses: 65,000 Apracotians and 5,000 Pandians. At the city of Tohu, the soldiers who actually make it have huge morale. To stop any more losses and prevent his entire army from collapsing, Apricot issues Order 67. If anyone retreats from anywhere, they get executed on the spot. With that, the Apracotians basically swear to defend the city with everything they have left. Pandy attacks block by block every single day from the start of the battle on 7th September until 11th November, pushing slowly toward the city center where the Tohu Armaments Factory is located. The fighting is insane, street to street, building to building. Apricot keeps sending reinforcements, bringing the total forces to 165,000 Pandians versus 225,000 Apracotians. The Apracotians are on the brink of total collapse. No supplies, terrible conditions, bodies everywhere. Everyone wants to surrender, but because of Order 67, they don't. Apricot, remembering the Battle of Alexia, sends in his elite cavalry, who smash into the Pandian flanks, completely disorganizing them and forcing a massive retreat. But the Pandian main force never gets the retreat message. They keep fighting in the center of Tohu until they suddenly realize they're totally encircled, with zero chance of escape. Everyone assumes it's over. The Pandian main force is finished. Until Ants, the renowned general who launched the raid on Dogaesis, arrives with a desperate plan and announces Operation Save the Women.